Eagles. Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, John McMullen. As we move along here in the offensive coordinator search in week 3 of the Philadelphia Eagles offseason. Hope everybody's having a good day today. Hope everybody's back is okay from shoveling all that ice yesterday. Not even snow. It was more ice. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Tuesday morning, my friend?
Yeah, I mentioned that. Back is a little bit bothersome after moving rocks from one side of the driveway to the other, but hopefully everybody's doing well locally, and we got a lot of other listeners as well, so hopefully you guys weren't impacted by the storm, but pretty bad around here. Not as bad as the Eagles offensive coordinator search. We might want to start Anchorman. Any Anchorman fans out there? It's like Panda Watch. Just kept going and going and going and going. That's where we are with this offensive coordinator search.
And it's getting even worse, John. I mean, you have two names that have withdrawn their names, Declan Doyle and Charlie Weiss. Now, I don't know. Maybe my perception is off, but two guys that, really, I didn't hear their name much before this search. I knew Charlie Weiss because I'm a college football player, I don't know if anybody
That's code for they weren't getting the job.
Is that how you see that?
That's code for they know they weren't getting the job. Oh, yeah. That's all right. That's code for they know they're not getting
left here then. If that's because you can spin it both ways. I mean, you can spin it that way, but you could also spin it the other way that they don't want the job.
I mean, that's been going on in the NFL for a long time. I'm not going to say 100% of the time, but you'll see that in other searches. That's not like an Eagles thing. That's when you see guys withdraw, that's an indication they're not getting the job. That's just agent speak and trying to spin their client as best as possible. And they don't want to say they didn't get the job. So, and teams just look the other way. So, I wouldn't get too worried about that. What I would get worried about is that this team doesn't seem to have a sharp plan coming into this. Other than Mike McDaniel, Brian Daboll, those are the two names I'm pretty confident. And who knows if Brian Daboll doesn't get the Bills job, maybe he's back into it. I saw Jeremy Fowler sort of put that a little bit into the equation that maybe the Tennessee thing isn't quite as concrete as many thought earlier in the process. And I think if that's the case, if he doesn't get the Bills job and they get Brian Daboll, I'm not sure it's going to work, but I think everybody would breathe a sigh of relief and say, oh, they got one of their guys. But other than that, other than those two guys, there's been no real feel from my perspective and the people I've talked to that there's tremendous interest in any of these guys. It's sort of just like, well, let's bring them in and see if we like them. And with the young guys specifically, it just didn't make a lot of sense coming off the criticism of Kevin Patullo and the inexperience, and he wasn't play calling. Then you go out and get a younger, more inexperienced guy. It just didn't float. Other than the Eagles have this history of wanting to sort of pick people's minds to use it as a search for two paths to gather information on where the league is going, where innovation is coming from. In the case of Charlie Weiss, they always seem to interview a college guy in these big searches, and that's what that was about, I think. Because I always say innovation trickles up in football.
Right.
So it just didn't make a lot of sense. And, but if you don't get Brian Daboll, where are you going to go? Now, I did find the timing interesting. There was a story out in Kansas City about Andy propping up Matt Nagy, really for a head coaching job, even more than a coordinator job. But of the group left that the Eagles have talked to, and maybe it continues to grow. I mean, he would be my choice, and I know that's not going to be a home run with most fans, but I mean, that dude's proven. He's done everything. He checks a lot of boxes, um, like Brian Daboll would. I mean, to me, he's the guy of the group that's left. Um, can't say that's the Eagles' thought process, but I never saw how you went with a Declan Doyle type of Charlie Weiss Jr. type coming off Kevin Petula. It just doesn't make sense of the way you typically do things in this league. Not that it couldn't work. I'd rather see a young up and comer that you believe in rather than the retread route, but just never made sense to me.
Just from an optic standpoint?
Well, yeah, that's a big part of it. That's the major part of it. Yeah. I mean, you spend all this time listening to, well, the guy's inexperienced. The guy doesn't know what he's doing, the sequencing, the concepts. Well, he's just never done it before. And then you're bringing in a 29-year-old who's never done it before. Because he's attached to Ben Johnson. I don't know. Those optics aren't great. College guy who's called plays at the college level, but hey, that's big difference, man. Than the NFL. I don't care how high it is and what level you are. I don't care who your dad is. That is a big jump to go from offensive coordinator of Ole Miss, because he hasn't done anything with LSU yet, to the Philadelphia Eagles. That's a big leap. And then some of the other guys, the Arthur Smiths, the Bobby Slowicks, the Zach Robinsons. Yeah, I thought they were anyway. So, I mean, like what? I'll ask the people in the chat. I mean, whomever your favorite is, and if it was Arthur Smith, boy, I'd like to meet that person. Like, what's the difference between Arthur Smith and Bobby Slowick and Zach Robinson versus Matt Nagy? Or Mike Kapka's out, but add him to the list. Ironically, I think Kapka did a better job with the Giants than Brian Daboll. I wouldn't have minded Kapka either. But I don't think it excited fans. I don't think any of these people are going to excite fans. I think Daboll will, because he was a name that clearly the Eagles wanted. So if they revert and get back to that, other than that, I don't think anybody they choose at this point is going to excite people. Frank Reich is closing in with the Jets, and there's been no evidence that they've even talked to him, other than Nick talks to him every day, probably via text, but not formally. No word on Cliff Kingsbury, which is the biggest surprise to me. No idea what's going on with him.
I think he's completely ruled him out. I don't think he's. I mean, that's what it seems to me. They interviewed him last time. They liked him. You know, he didn't like the coaching setup, and now he's not even. I haven't even heard the name. I mean, I hear it a little bit. But
yeah, well, he's been surprisingly quiet around the league. Like I thought there would be much more hype around. So I don't know what's going on with him. You know, a lot of people. It looks like the Browns are coming off Nate. I think there was a lot of momentum that that the Browns were going to hire Nate Shieldhouse, and I think they are coming off him, and are probably going to hire Jim Schwartz, I think, now. And that would leave him open. Maybe they'll talk to him, but he did a Zoom with the Bills for their head coaching, so you have to wait. And there's talk, remember, because all the McVay guys, Mike LaFleur is probably the favorite to get the Arizona job. And if he gets the Arizona job, Shieldhouse is going to be the offensive coordinator of the Rams. So Probably can't get him. And I don't know why people would be excited by him. I don't know why they would be, but they probably would be.
All right, John. So what's happening?
Yeah, it's a shit show.
What is it to you, though?
It's a shit show.
Because I know you think sometimes people go over the top, which maybe they do. What is it to you, though, that what are we, 15 days in now, John? We got like 14 different candidates, and still no answer. Still, it feels like still not even all that much closer to the answer.
Well, it feels like they're waiting for something. And I mean, from my perspective, if that's Dayball, that's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's back on track.
Is it one of the teams in the Super Bowl? No, because they can still interview them, right?
Only if it's a second interview, and they didn't get a first interview, so no, they can't. But I don't think it's anybody from the Super Bowl teams anyway. They're certainly not going to hire Josh McDaniels. And they didn't, you would have to be further along. That was part of the problem with Jonathan Gannon, because in Arizona, new general manager got the job late, who's a good friend of Gannon. So they didn't interview him the first time, the first interview. And that's Monty Ossenfort was kind of didn't know the rules and didn't know, basically had to wait. And all he did was make a call, but I don't want to re-legislate that, but it was against the rules, and they paid the price with the penalty. But, you have to have, it's only a second interview, and they didn't have the first interview. So they would have to do the whole thing. I mean, could they pivot and change to, say, Kubiak? And yeah, they could, but they have to wait completely till after the Super Bowl, which would really be a lengthy period for an OC search. I think it's more they're waiting for somebody to decide on the head coaching opportunities, and that would be Daboll. Or to a lesser degree, Shieldhouse. But I don't see why he would come here to be the offensive coordinator and not stay in the Rams. I get he'd get to call plays here. But again, inexperienced, first-time guy, that doesn't check the box. And even though it's not fair, the quickest way to get a head coaching job is to be with Sean McVay. It just is.
Well, I mean, the guy does have pretty good track record in McVay. I know you don't like some of his in-game calls, but the guy's got a pretty good resume.
Well, I mean, the guy. Look, he does have a pretty good resume, but he's going to call the plays. You're not going to call the plays. I'm talking about from a calling play perspective. Number one, and yeah, the league. I mean, look at his defensive guys. They've all floundered. The guys who got defensive head coaching jobs. And you can argue Kevin O'Connell's good one year, bad next year, good, bad. He's been a yo-yo. It hasn't been indicative. Everybody hires the guys, but they haven't really succeeded that greatly. Which again points to it, but it's the easiest path to get a head coaching job. Whereas guys like Andy Reid who've done it more, and for a while there were a lot of Andy, but you look at Matt Nagy, why can't Matt Nagy? Why is Matt Nagy bad? I don't know. But if he was under the shine of Sean McVay, guaranteed being a head coach by now. I don't know.
Matt Nagy talk is interesting. I mean, I feel like he's a little overhated for whatever reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
It is a little bizarre, but that's the NFL world. They got this. They fall in love with people, and then they also fall in hate with people as well. All right, John. Interesting stuff. One other piece of news we got to get to, John. The departure of Christian Parker last week to the Dallas Cowboys has resulted in an opening position for the secondary coach, and the Eagles have filled that by elevating Joe Casper, John, a name that you said immediately. All right, this is the name to watch out for an elevation. Joe Casper has officially been elevated from the safeties coach to the secondary coach. John, your first reactions on Joe Casper's elevation?
Yeah, that was sort of a no-brainer. It was sort of well known behind the scenes that Joe was going to be elevated. Very, very highly regarded within the building. Vic Fangio loves him. Vic had him in Miami, took him from the Eagles, got him to Miami, brought him back. So Vic Fangio is a big fan. And that was sort of a seamless transition. Plus, he had other why they had to act quickly, because the Eagles don't act quickly typically, is because he had other offers. He could have went with Gannon back to Green Bay, had some other offers. So they had to make the move pretty quickly, and they did. So that's a positive from the Eagles' perspective, because good young coach. Everybody loves him. Similar, you saw Cooper DeJean immediately go out and sort of put his stamp behind the move. Players love him. No reason to go outside the building for that job.
Yeah, no, feels like Joe Casper is well liked. I saw some Coop post about him, and so good for him. Good for Joe Casper. And John, how big of a loss do you think that's going to be? I mean, I think Joe's going to be good, but obviously we'll see. I mean, I know, when people think of coaching, when people think of teams, they don't particularly think right away of, okay, how good is the special teams coach or the secondaries coach? But Christian Parker, by all accounts, seemingly was a very valuable piece of the Eagles staff. And now with him out the door, how big of a hit do you think that is for the Eagles, replacing him with a guy like Joe Casper?
Well, I mean, look, it's a hit. Anytime you lose a good coach, it's a hit, but that's just life in the NFL. I mean, that's part of it. And with especially with younger coaches who are going to be coordinators, you kind of know you're running them to begin with. So you make that succession plan. The good coordinators, good coaches do. And the Eagles had that in place for Christian Parker with Joe Casper. So, I always compare it to a Xerox machine for older people. The old Xerox, when you make a copy, though, it's a little bit less sharp each time you do it. So there's a reason you hire guys for certain jobs, and it's because you think they're the best for the job. Now, sometimes it turns out to be incorrect, but with Christian Parker, he's done a very good job. So the Xerox is probably not going to be quite as sharp, at least early on. And you hope they grow from there. But there's tremendous turnover on every staff every year for the most part in this league, far more than the Eagles have. Now they'll have more this year than typically. So you try to keep people around as long as possible. But look, you see all these guys being hired, and how many stops they have along the way. I always explain it's a very nomadic profession. I mean, they're just all over the place. And so you're used to it, and it's part of the game. And that's why we talk about, the Eagles for a couple more weeks are the reigning Super Bowl champions. They were never defending because there's so much change in the NFL. And the group that won the Super Bowl would never be together again. And that's every single NFL team. It will never be this year's team. The 2026 team, whenever it all shakes out, will never be together again after 2026. So
yeah, it might not be.
I mean, that's just part. That's just part of the NFL.
Yeah, no, it is. There's no doubt. John, do you think this coaching search, this OC search, has been a wake up call for the Eagles front office?
I think it should be, but not probably for the reasons most people would think. I think it's because of lack of patience. maybe going over the top on the expectations, which, that's a fine line. I always say it's good to have high expectations. It's also kind of reckless to immediately shift gears if you don't reach those expectations. So that, admittedly, it's a fine line. Then you have the public facing aspect. Look, it's very difficult to stay with Kevin Patullo after the season they had. I get that because, if this were a normal company and you saw somebody and you said, this guy's good, but he needs time, you just move forward. And he'll learn and he'll get better. You can't do this in this league. Or I should say, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that teams think they can't do it. And the Eagles think they can't do it. And I think they should learn from that and say, you know what? Fuck everybody else.
It's amazing why they don't do that. I mean, I say fuck everybody else, and I don't have.
Very hard to do. You can say that, but it's very hard to do. Think about some of the stuff coming out right now. And by the way, this is what also the lack of transparency is another part which I look at.
Oh, it's so big in that organization. It seems the outside looking in, John, the perception they care about it. It's weird. It's a weird building. It's what it seems to me. It's a weird building.
Well, I think the lack of transparency hurts them. So when you have forget about people like me, if you got, higher profile people like Shady McCoy I saw out there saying these things. Like there's basically talking about the coordinator search, and Ian Rappaport was out there, and Ian's obviously out there saying that, people don't want to come here. So that's the perception. Most people don't realize interviews don't equal offers. Most people don't realize withdrawal isn't withdrawal in typical NFL standards. So, the lack of transparency, and then people just take the baton, and I say all the time, and they go where they're going to go with it. And
yeah, but withdrawing on this job felt different than if you hear a withdrawal on another NFL job. If somebody withdrew from the Chargers job,
but it's not.
Yeah, but there's nobody's even excited. Nobody's vouching to try and get this job. Mike McDaniel would barely pick up the phone call. If somebody said, "Hey, somebody withdrew,"
well, Mike, there's a big difference between Mike McDaniel and Declan Doyle. I think people don't know. Mike McDaniel legitimately, did want to come here. Yeah, flat out. I've mentioned it since the start. Guys,
but withdrew from the Chargers job. All right, that's much more believable. I mean, the Eagles
job. No. Guys with options weren't coming here. Now, that might even, and that's a very short list. I'm talking about multiple options. I'm not talking about I'm talking about Mike McDaniel level interest, Brian Daboll level interest. There's two guys. That's it. Everybody else, no, absolutely not. When Declan Doyle says he's withdrawing, that's an indication he wasn't getting the job. That's not Eagles centric. That's NFL centric. That's how all these agents do business.
All right.
And their guys not getting the job.
It does feel different in Philly. I get it. What you're saying. You're saying it
feels different. And that's what I'm saying. The Eagles should learn from it. It does feel different in Philly, but it feels different. It isn't different. And their lack of transparency only increases that. Now, they're not going to go out and say, because that's part of doing business, and the fact that you sort of do the agents a favor and allow them to say we're withdrawing. That's part of the game. That's part of the way the league does business. And again, watch other cities. You'll see the same thing. It happens. One of the things that was new this year was this, and it's happened with a couple of people, couple of high profile people, Mike McDaniel being one of them. Oh, well, he's going to be the head coach of the Chargers if he doesn't get a head coaching job. That was new. That has never happened before. Brian Daboll, well, he's going to go to Tennessee if he doesn't get a head coaching job. Even at the coordinator level, you saw it with Brian Flores. Oh, he's going to go back to Minnesota. He signed it if he doesn't get a head coaching job. That's new. So you do have an evolution, but for years, the withdrawal, when you hear that term withdrawal, 99% of the time, and this is not Eagles centric, as I said, this is NFL. This is just the NFL. That's an indication that their client was informed that he's not getting the job and they're going in a different direction. I'm just, people can believe it if they want, not believe it. I'm just telling you
I don't believe you. I'm just saying it wouldn't surprise me.
That's business as usual in the NFL. The entire league. That is not at all Eagles centric. But to your point about how the perception is with Philadelphia, yeah, I mean that the and part of that is their lack of transparency. Because they allow people, and they claim they don't like it, but they allow people to have the baton and do what they want and say what they want and do what they want. And everybody can have an opinion. There's nothing wrong with it. But if they furnish more information, there's a better likelihood that people would have a better feel for what's going on here. But they choose to do it the way they choose to do it.
Interesting. And it is an interesting search so far for this Eagles football team. We will find out. John, do you think it's Nick Sirianni? You think people don't want to work with Nick Sirianni?
No. That the Eagles will get an offensive coordinator, and many of these guys would have taken this job. My feel is that their contingencies were not, which is not typical of this organization, were not nailed down to the point of competence. And once the top two, and again, maybe Daboll's the guy, and this changes the minute he's hired. There are two guys I'm confident they wanted. And I don't even know why they wanted one, but one was Mike McDaniel. And he didn't want the job. That's fair. That is completely fair to say. He didn't want it. He didn't want the job. For what reason? There could be a million reasons. I don't think one of them is Nick Sirianni. In his case, he's got family in California. His wife's from California. He's been in California. That's a big part of it. It could be as simple as that, as I said. It could be, they're trying to push Stoutland on him as a run game coordinator. It could be a million things. It could be part quarterback. It could be, they're too risk averse. He doesn't want to be involved with that. It could be a million things, which would be Sirianni tinted. Could be a million different things. But the one guy you can point out and say, well, they wanted that guy is Mike McDaniel. And then the other guy is Brian Daboll, and they might still get him. So if they get him, all this talk was just they were waiting for him.
Yeah, and Brian Daboll made sure everybody knew that he was the Eagles weren't even his side piece. They were like his third, fourth option if he didn't get anything else. Make sure my agent puts out, I want the Buffalo job. And if I don't get the Buffalo job, I want to be the Tennessee Titans coordinator. And if that falls through, then maybe I'll take the call from the Philadelphia Eagles. That's how it looks on Brian Daboll.
Well, that's possible, and if he's got the kind of,
I think being too nice to these guys, man, this looks terrible. I mean, this is the Philadelphia Eagles.
First of all, I don't even think that would be a good hire. So I'm like,
I don't either, but I think the point is
I would hire Matt Nagy yesterday, but that's me.
But it feels to me that the fabric of the team is not eroding, but in some way is not nearly as good as everybody thought. I mean, this team was dancing down Broad Street less than a year ago. Well, you would think, everybody
nothing has changed from the fabric of this team from a coaching perspective. I've been talking about this for years. for years, since every day we've done this show, because I've been here, I've been through it with Doug. I've been through it multiple times with Doug. I've been through it with Nick. This is the way they do coaching. This is it, man. This ain't new. And, they'll point to their launch.
It's reaching a breaking point. We can't even we're having trouble replacing Kevin Petullo.
Oh, they're not having trouble. They're waiting for something.
If you can't get any of the names that you want when you start a coaching search, and you're settling for people because you have to, I mean, you could frame that any way you want.
Well, that's it. Again, people forget they settled for Nick Sirianni. They settled for Doug Peterson. It's very rare you get your first choice in anything. The draft is a perfect example. You're usually settled unless you have the number one.
I mean, you're judging the result. All right, Nick Sirianni.
Well, yeah, you're usually settling. Nobody cares that they settled for Doug Peterson over Ben McAdoo and Adam Gase. Nobody cares. And maybe Tom Coughlin. People forget Tom. They settled for Doug Peterson. They settled for Nick Sirianni. Those worked better than the alternatives if they didn't have to settle. So I'm not saying you're right. If they don't get, and they haven't gotten Mike McDaniel, if they don't get Brian Daboll, they are by definition settling. I'm not arguing that at all, but that doesn't mean it can't work out.
If they get Brian Daboll settled.
By the way, they could have whomever's left. I don't know. Nagy's a little weird. Maybe he's hanging out hope.
He's not with the Lions. Kafka took a senior offense, or what did he take?
Well, that's senior, some kind of senior role. They haven't even announced it yet. He's not going to be the offensive coordinator, obviously, because they hired Drew Petzik. But what I'm trying to say is all these guys who are left, they take the job. They're waiting for something. And I don't know what they're waiting for. I presume that's just speculation. I presume it's Daboll. Maybe it is a different name we haven't talked about because it hasn't been released. Remember, they're not transparent. There could be some guys they've talked to that we don't even know.
The Eagles are operating,
but they're waiting for something.
They're going to pull one of the best offensive coordinators
waiting.
Nobody knows about.
I'm not saying that either. First of all, I'm not enthralled by Mike McDaniel.
Me neither.
So I'll give everybody a chance. I don't care whoever they're hiring. Great. I'll see if they can do it or they can't do it. But I mean, people getting excited by certain candidates, I don't know where that comes from, other than
forget the people. What about the Eagles? The Eagles were excited about certain candidates that wanted nothing to do with them.
Yeah, and I think and sometimes, as proven in coaching searches before, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, because in the times that they lost out on the guys they wanted, it's worked out pretty well for them.
Yeah, but what we say, is that something that you want to rely on? You know what I mean? Is that something that you want to rely on every single time, get lucky on? Are they getting lucky? Is it part of their process? I don't know. I mean, it's fair to wonder.
I mean, they'll tell you it's part of the process. I'll tell you it's lucky.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean.
They wanted
that hire great people all the time. Can't get the people that they wanted to hire, then there's absolutely some element of luck, whether they want to.
Well, that's my point. They can say whatever they want. If you want Adam Gase over Doug Peterson, there's a problem.
All right. So who are the names we have left, John? We had Brian Daboll. We got Jim Bob Cooter, who's become the
Brian Daboll, we don't know.
We don't know.
Just some. In theory, he's taken the Titans job, but at least some people have. Maybe that's not as concrete as it was originally speculated as.
Feels like he's getting whipped around just a little bit less than the Eagles are.
Yeah, but the new guys yesterday were Jared Johnson. They've Nick's got a long history. I get the feeling they're forcing their sort of like when they hired Bobby King. Now, for all the people that think Nick doesn't have an imprint, they've wanted to work with Jared Johnson for a while. But again, he's got no experience play calling. He's coming off a year where C.J. Stroud just shit the bed. I don't know how exciting that is. He's the Texans quarterback coach. Frank Smith, like I said, when I heard Frank Smith after Clayton Adams, they wanted to talk to Clayton Adams. I think that's more about just doing due diligence on the running game and what went wrong on the running game to talk with some impressive people from the running game perspective. I think that's what Frank Smith is about. So I don't think that's that serious, but we shall see. And then of course you have Matt Nagy, as we talked about, Josh Gazard.
They're not going to hire
Josh. I don't know if his interview ever got confirmed. If it did, I missed it.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I know the report was out there that. So I don't even know. Jim Bob Cooter, they did interview. So he's still involved. But a lot of the guys, have gone on, have moved on. First of all, nobody wants to wait this long. They have to get jobs too. So Declan Doyle obviously withdrew. Mike Kapka took the job in Detroit, which it was a smart move. I mean, if that's obviously a very talented offense. Charlie Weiss left for staying at LSU. Arthur Smith went back to college in Ohio State. Went to college in Ohio State. Bobby Slowick stayed in Miami. Zach Robinson got the Bucs job. Mike McDaniel obviously firmly in with the Chargers after he didn't get a head coaching job. So those are sort of the names. And, guys got to move on quickly. So a lot of the guys have moved on. But, they're going to have an offensive coordinator. That's not an issue. Well, the question is, do they get somebody who can do the job at a level that people are happy with, which is probably unrealistic, by the way, as I pointed out. Every offensive coordinator since I've been here has been completely shit on. Every single one of them. Even the ones that hindsight claims weren't shit on were shit on dramatically. And that'd be Frank Reich and Kellen Moore mainly. And Shane as well. I've never been here where an offensive coordinator has not been really, really disliked. So, part of that is that. I know Ian was out there saying that somewhere this morning, that's a problem, which I think is a problem, but I think it's a smaller problem than people make it out to be. In other words, I think it's part of the decision making for most of these coaches. Look, if I have options, I don't want my family going through that. I think that is a small part, but I don't think it's a major part of it.
Me too.
Because I don't think there's a lot of guys with massive options. So, but I do think it exists. I do think it's real. That part is real.
They should do a better job of keeping that. I mean, I don't even know how somebody knew where Patullo lived. I guess it happens because they have to get in great shape.
Nobody, the Eagles don't tell anybody where Kevin lives.
Oh,
People just find out.
Kids, yeah, I guess
I never mention where. I know where a bunch of guys I never mention.
Yeah, I don't blame you for that.
Ever. I'll say South Jersey or Philly suburbs. That's it. And I shouldn't even go that far. But I know where a bunch of guys live, and you will never hear me mention it once. Ever. Because no. And the Eagles certainly don't tell people where people live. I guarantee you that. Yeah, never.
All right, so are you feeling like one of these names is going to be the OC? If I made you guess right now, you going
Well, I
Dable
would.
still?
I. No. Well, I'm going Nagy because I found it curious that Andy was out there yesterday pumping him up, and I've
Well,
seen
my
this
question
team
on
before when
Nagy
they
is, didn't he just get fired? I mean, he didn't get fired, but
he didn't get
they were
fired. He was out there pumping him up. And Andy
why
explained
did they bring him back if he's pumping up? Why did they replace him with Eric Bieniemy?
he because his contract expired. That's contracts expire, so coaches can bet on themselves just like players. And he had told Andy. Andy explained all this yesterday. He told Andy before the season started he was going to let his contract expire, and he
Trying to
wanted
get it.
another opportunity. Yeah, he wanted another opportunity to be a head coach or a play caller, because Andy's going to do the majority of that, or though occasionally he'll pass it off. And he told Andy before the season he was going to let his contract expire. And Andy was out there explaining this yesterday to try to pump him up. I've seen this before when the Eagles get to a point and they pick up the phone. They go, Andy, what should we do? So I could see it happening again. And obviously he's going to have only good things to say about Matt Nagy. So now the Dayball stuff, though, and I only bring that up because I think it was Fowler who was the first, and I think Albert Breer followed, and when two said it and said, well, I'm not sure he's completely out of it in Philadelphia. My ears kind of raised there. So that I would say Dayball's number one. And then if not, I would go Nagy.
Dable and Nagy. All right. I like Jim. Give me Jim Bob Cooter. At least it's fun to say the name every day. Jim Bob Cooter. I mean, Brian Dable doesn't really excite me. He doesn't. Does he?
No.
I know everybody kind of jumped on him.
I think he checks a lot of boxes. I think he checks a lot of boxes for what they're looking for. Experience.
I don't know, man. He really rubbed me the wrong way in some areas as the Giants coach.
Well, he's not going to be a head coach. So
yeah, but I'm not even talking about the head coaching duties. I didn't even think he was that bad of a head coach. I thought it was more about, like some of the sideline stuff. I don't know. I just felt like, I mean, do you remember the comment he made earlier this year, John, when they were about to play the Eagles about when AJ Brown was bitching? And he made a comment about AJ Brown bitching, and he says, well, I ran the tape. AJ Brown's open all the time. Something along those lines.
I don't remember, but I mean, he's got a good relationship with Nick. I think he's got a good relationship with Jalen. He's got a good relationship with Saquon. He's got experience. Yeah, I mean, he shouldn't be going in the blue tent when his quarterback's in concussion protocol, but he's not the head coach. He's not going to do that here. Yeah. So I mean, like I said, I think Mike Kafka did a better job with the Giants offense than he did. So I'm not thrilled from the history perspective. I think he was built off Josh Allen, which everybody's going to look good to a certain degree with Josh Allen. But that's the NFL, man. Like the best example of that is Adam Gase. Adam Gase got multiple jobs because of Peyton Manning. He should be sending residuals to Peyton Manning every day of his life. Just a bad football coach. I hate to say it. I mean, I never go that bad head coach. And he was smart enough as a coordinator to get the buck out of Peyton's way. And he made a lot of money for that. And that's what I kind of, not to that level, but like I know he's going to be successful with Josh Allen. Look at his history without Josh Allen. That's what concerns me.
Well, the Dable quote that I was referencing, which I think is funny, said it was, you watch the tape, AJ Brown is open a lot. Now, to me, I don't know, everybody get all mad at me. That sounds like he's talking about one person. I mean, if the receiver's open, he's not criticizing AJ. if the receiver's open, and I don't know how you're criticizing the coordinator, which most people think it was a criticism of Kevin Patullo, isn't that a criticism of Jalen Hurts?
I don't know if you want to take it that way. I didn't. I can say. Well, I can say immediately when you said it, I was not thinking that. I was thinking like, I thought it was a criticism of people saying Eagles receivers are never open because of Kevin Patullo. That's how I took it.
No, this was the week Brown was going, crazy in the news.
Well, I'm just saying that's I didn't hear the context of it. I didn't hear when he said it. But I'm saying when you said it, that was my immediate reaction was he's pointing out that their receivers are open and everybody claims the receivers aren't open. And I took that as more of, but I could see why people took it the way you took it.
Well, and that's if they took it the way you took it, isn't it the same answer?
Well, not if you want to take it again. Yes, if you want to take it that way, I'm just giving you my honest answer. I took it in a different direction. You took it in a different direction. People are always going to take, with Jalen Hurts.
That's what I'm saying. Though. You took it in what direction exactly did you take it then? You took it that he said that they're not as, covered as people say they are. Well, what exactly does that mean?
It means that, in my estimation, it meant that he was protecting a fellow coach in the profession, in the industry, which could be the case, could not be the case. If anybody's pointing out that, and I find it very hard to believe in season, Brian Daboll's trying to, again, kind of a hothead, did some goofy things on the sideline, the blue tent being one of them.
Yeah,
if you're going to play a division rival, I don't think he's going to be dumb enough to say, look, the ball doesn't come out, even though we all know this, the ball doesn't come out on time, which I think is what you're getting at. First of all, you're right. The ball doesn't come out on time. And that's part of the reason why people think the receivers aren't open, because open in the NFL isn't what open in college is or what people think it is. And if the ball doesn't come out on time, you're going to get closed pretty quickly and you're not going to be open. So I agree with your premise of that's an issue with the Eagles offense, but that's a different conversation. I don't think Brian Daboll would be dumb enough to be criticizing Jalen Hurts. That's why I went to, he's pointing out that these receivers are not, their ability to get open has not waned. That's how I took it. And again, maybe I'm wrong. I'm flying. I don't know when he said it, why he said it, the context of what he said it. But I know coaches don't criticize opposition players usually 99% of the time, to the point, especially when they're going to play them.
I'm surprised you don't remember this. We talked about it on the show at length when he said it.
I don't know, because it's people say a lot of shit every week, and then it goes on to the next week and they say something else. But coaches very rarely criticize opposing players. Okay, yeah, I mean, it's just, it does no good. Even to the point, I always go back to the Jim Schwartz conversation about DJ Metcalf when he said, well, he's not, and he meant it as a compliment. Well, he's not Calvin Johnson, but he's the closest thing to Calvin Johnson that he's ever seen. That's a compliment for anybody that knows Jim Schwartz, because Jim will, say Calvin Johnson's the best player he's ever been around, and might be one of the best, not might be, it's one of the best receivers of all time. And it was actually a compliment, but DJ Metcalf took it as a slight, probably because he's not a football historian. He's like, what is this fucking asshole doing? So he took it as a slight, and then he went out and had a big game against the Eagles, and Jim actually learned from that. He's like, I'm trying to compliment the guy, and the guy took it as a slight. So, coaches are very aware of not criticizing players, especially when they're about to play them. Now, behind the scenes,
I'm not saying you're wrong about that, but this was at a time when everybody was talking about the Eagles' offense because of AJ Brown's comments, and Brian Daboll walks up to the podium and says, "Well, he's open." I mean, yeah. I don't know. I don't know how many different ways you can take that, but it is what it is.
Well, I don't know. I don't. again, I literally don't remember it. What is?
Oh, I mean,
why did he walk up? He
Is it-
walked up to the microphone and just started talking about AJ Brown. Like, I don't believe that to be the case.
Started a press conference, John. They were talking about what's going on in Philadelphia for the
But he was asked a question, correct?
Yeah. The same way Nick Sirianni talks to you. I mean, come on, John.
Well, you said he walked up to the microphone and he started talking about AJ Brown. I'm only going on what you're telling me because I literally don't remember what happened.
Right.
So I'm only.
I mean, if you're gonna take that as Brian Dable literally walks up to the microphone, you cover the fucking NFL, John. You know how
that's my point. I'm trying to point out you're not putting all the context involved. I'm saying, forget about me. Why do you think the way you think? What do you think he's trying to say?
I think he's trying to say that AJ Brown's not the problem, and if a receiver is running wide open, then the coach isn't the problem. Is that perhaps a reason why Brian Dable doesn't want to be the coach here in Philadelphia? That's what I'm trying to say. And you're acting like I'm saying Brian Dable held a press conference. All right, everybody, I'm holding a press conference to talk about AJ Brown. No, he was at a press conference before the Eagles Week 6 game. AJ Brown was bitching. They got asked about his upcoming opponent. That's what he said. I mean, come on, John. I don't know why you're looking at me like I got 12 heads.
Because A, you think I remember this thing, and B, you're taking out thing.
You remember everything else. I mean,
well, I have a good memory, but when it comes to games, you move on to the next game. If your thesis here is Brian Daboll isn't taking the job because of Jalen Hurts, that's fine. I don't agree with it, but that's fine. If your thesis is he gave away why he's not taking the Eagles job, that I completely think is the guy. Yeah, it's a press conference. The guy's talking off the cuff. I by no means am I going to go back to that and say, well, this is the moment where Brian Daboll explained why he's not taking the Eagles job. First of all, he's the head coach of the fucking Giants. He's trying to keep his own job. He's trying to beat the Eagles. He's trying to get to that. He's not thinking about Jalen Hurts. From what I understand, they have a good relationship. I know everybody's going to go back to Alabama, and he benched him. I think Nick Saban benched him. They have a good relationship. They've had a good relationship. Jalen spoke glowingly of Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll spoke glowingly of Jalen Hurts. So I'm not going to take one clip and when he's not even talking about Jalen Hurts, other than, yes, the ball doesn't come out on time in the Eagles offense, which I've been talking about for 5 years. So every coach knows that. That doesn't mean you can't find a coach to coach Jalen Hurts. That's where coaching comes into it. You accentuate what you have with the quarterback. And I think anybody who's coming here, whether it's Brian Daboll or somebody else, most likely somebody else, is going to end up trying to do that because that's their jobs. I don't think that changes. And they're going to come in and try to evolve things. And I said, it's probably going to be what we've seen in years past. They're going to try to evolve it in the offseason, and then they're going to scale it back in the regular season. And I only say that because that's been the history of multiple offensive coordinators and what they've done in this particular offense because they're trying to take advantage of what they have. I don't think it's complicated as people think it is. I really don't. In any situation you're in, Mike McDaniel, well, yeah, he's probably thrilled to work with Justin Herbert. Probably thrilled. Well, he's probably not thrilled to work with their offensive line, at least the group here. Now he knows he's getting Joe Alt back. He knows he's getting Rashawn Slater back. The point is, I guarantee you Mike McDaniel is not thrilled with every aspect of the Los Angeles Chargers offense. So he'll go into that situation. He'll assess what he has, and he'll try to build the best he can around what he has. That's what coaching is. And whomever they hire is going to do that. And Jalen Hurts is going to be the quarterback. So for the people that want it to turn into Kyle Shanahan, it's not going to turn into Kyle Shanahan because most coaches aren't dumb, and they're going to shift to what he does best, and hopefully improve the fucking running game, which I think is mission number one, and why they're talking to Frank Smith and why they want to talk to Clayton Adams, and they were blocked from that. So I'm not saying you can have your opinion. That's great. I'm just saying I'm not going to look at a clip from whatever it was, week whatever, and say this is the reason he doesn't want to work for the Eagles. I mean, he's got options, and obviously wants to be a head coach. I mean, everybody wants to be a head coach if you have every ambition. There's the occasional big Fangio, but he wanted, even in his career, he wanted to be a head coach at one point. And now he said at this stage of his career, at the end of his career, he doesn't want to do it anymore. That's a really rare sort of path if you can find a guy like that. Most people in this industry have ambition, and they want to be a head coach, and they want to be an offensive coordinator if they're not in the head coaching running. So they'll get somebody to take this job. That's not an issue. The issue of how they go about these searches, I think, is becoming a bit of an issue. And part of it is because their lack of transparency encourages conversations like this conversation we're having, to be honest. And that's on them. That's completely on them. Because you're hardly the only one. You got a whole group of people out there.
I watched on the national show yesterday when they talked about Dable going to Philly. It's where I got it.
Yeah. You got a whole group of people all over the place who think Declan Doyle turned down the Eagles job, or Brian Dable doesn't want to be here, or Mike McDaniel didn't want to be here. And some of the other guys, like, I don't even know they talked to, if they talked to, as I said before, Josh Grizzard, and you got some people who think he doesn't want the job. It's like, and that's their fault, I think.
Well, I mean, did it come out that Brian Dable wanted the Buffalo job and then the Tennessee job before the Eagles job? It did. So
well, it came out that he wanted a head coaching job. He's also, I think, still in the running in Las Vegas. That to me is obvious. Okay. Yeah. Of course he wants to be a head coach.
Head coach. Agreed.
Then there was the report from Diana received that if he doesn't get the Buffalo job or the Las Vegas job, he'll go to Tennessee to be Robert Saleh's offensive coordinator. Those two have gotten pretty close. And then that was kind of scaled back. And Jeremy Fowler said, I don't think the door is shut on Philly, as I think how Jeremy phrased it. And then Albert Breer said a similar thing. So again, but you're, and this is obviously all agent driven. So you're at the behest of the agent, and how they're explaining things. But there does seem to be a sliver of an opening that maybe things with Tennessee aren't as concrete. And Tennessee has gone on to interview a bunch of coordinator candidates as well. Now, they have to have a contingency, so it might be just as simple as that. But they have continued to interview guys for the offensive coordinator position down there. So I don't think you should slam the door shut on Brian Dable just yet. Not that I would be that excited by that, to be honest, which I've also said.
Interesting. All right, good stuff. We got some super chats we'll get to. Appreciate everybody being here this morning. OC research continues into day number 15 and week number 3. Here's Nick Gonzalez. Get ready for the Cooter bomb. Huge Cooter news. At this point, I think I'd be pretty happy about Jim Bob Cooter.
I think he just wanted to say huge Cooter news.
I think so too, but it is the guy's name. I don't like, I don't know. It's
not like somebody's going to get the job, and he's one of the guys left in the running. So, I mean, if that's your favorite, yeah. Hey, Jim Bob's a fine coach as well. I think there will be a group that doesn't like him because he's friends with Nick Sirianni, but I would say who cares? I think that's a positive from my perspective.
How much do you think coaches talk in terms of like potential OCs that are coming here? How many of them do you think have talked to Kellen Moore, our most recent OC besides Petula? Or maybe even Petula. Maybe they've talked to Petula. I don't know if they know Petula as much.
It's big fraternity.
It is.
Yeah,
right?
guys talk all the time.
Yeah, I just wonder what it said. I'm not going to speculate, but I wonder what it said.
Well, to the point about the environment that Ian was talking about, and I don't know where he said it.
What about the offense, though? I mean, I know the environment is a point. I'm not saying it's not. I get it. Philly's tough. What about the offense, though? Because the offense hasn't been very good.
I think everybody knows with the offense. I mean, like they can see the tape. They know what the offense is. They don't need help with that. Now that's why I don't write off like you wrote off like the guys have families. I talk about it all the time. That's why I think that's way more important. When guys talk, they're talking about stuff like that. They're not talking about because they can watch the tape. They know what the offense is. They know what the offense is.
All right, here's Fleming. He says no one wants this because they know there'll be a neutered puppet handcuffed by the QB needing a Pop Warner offense, and Nick, Howie, and Julian mandating.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a bit much, but who's won more than the Philadelphia? Which one of these guys? Can somebody point to me that which one of these guys has won more than the Philadelphia Eagles with that neutered puppet offense?
Not one, not a single one.
Or handcuffed by the Jalen Hurts at QB. Any of these guys? Any of these guys have won in better situations where they're not neutered, where they don't have a quarterback who handcuffs them? Any of them?
No, they haven't.
Somebody point to any of them?
If it was that simple, though, then we wouldn't be looking for an offensive coordinator right now. So
well, and I blame the Eagles for that.
I think what you're saying.
I blame the Eagles for that. That's where I blame the Eagles. Like I think I'm one of the very few who thinks they should have stuck with the guy they had and let him grow in the fucking position.
Here's Mr. Hill. MacMan and Z, why don't we hear about Gruden? He is a mad scientist. Is his offense too complex and Jalen isn't cerebral?
John Gruden. First of all, he's got a lot of issues with the NFL, number one. Number two, if John Gruden were to come back and be as a head coach, I mean, he's not coming back to be an offensive coordinator. Come on. It's not, yeah. I mean, it's not realistic.
Mr. Hill, thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Here's Reese. John, do you eat at NovaCare? Good food, ? What's your fave? A good question. A good off-season question.
We used to. No, we got cut off about 6 years ago. It was phenomenal. One of the best parts of the job was getting to eat at the cafeteria because you get the same food the players get, which is it's just unbelievable.
Wait, they cut you off? When did they cut you off?
5, 6 years ago.
Yeah, probably COVID.
Some knucklehead sat down and was talking. Like we weren't, nor were we supposed to. We basically got to go in, get our food in sort of a little takeout box and take it back to where we weren't permitted to sit with the employees and the team for obvious reasons. And some knucklehead sat down. That's how I heard it, but and ruined it for everybody. But
some knucklehead. Come on, man. You ruined it. All right, here's Marshall. I'm with John. Everything is not a shot at Hurts. Hashtag Jalenites assemble. Good morning, guys. Morning, Marsh. Appreciate you being here.
Well, I find it's like I go back and forth because half of the people think I hate Jalen and half of the people think I'm too easy on Jalen, which to me, I think I'm doing my job if that's the case. Because clearly there's deficiencies And I've been talking about it for 5 years, and every coach knows it. Every coach in this search knows it. They're not being, to your point about do they talk to Kellen or talk to Kevin? They all know it. I mean,
I'm
Kellen
trying
and
to
Kevin know it.
hurts, but I think not you, John. I think some people are being dense about this. I mean, I'm not taking a shot at him. I'm simply asking why the case is, why we've gotten to this point. That's all. I think it's a fair question. If you don't, then that's on you.
Well, I think I think similar to the offense this year. What was wrong with the offense? And the answer was everything. Everybody had their fingerprints on it. Same thing here. What's the problem with this search? Is he a part of it? Sure, he's a part of it.
Yeah, right.
Is he the biggest part? I would say not even close. But everything's involved. Everybody's got their fingerprints on it. The Eagles have the way Jeffrey Lurie and has done things in these coaching searches. His impatience, the environment, the quarterback, the risk averse off, everything is part of it. But I think when you're talking to guys who have multiple options, and to me there were only two, and those are the two they wanted, and and if Daboll ultimately does go to Tennessee, because I don't think he's getting the Buffalo job. Those are the two guys you can point to and say the Eagles didn't get those guys because that's the guys they wanted. And Mike's already out in LA, but those are the two guys. Everybody else, I think they could have had to this point. And they haven't for whatever reason that will be explained to me one day. I feel very confident. Ultimately, I will know, but I don't know right now. But I think everybody else, every single name, I'm trying to think of all the names. There's so many names. There's 14 names. I'm trying to think of the guys that took other jobs. So it's Declan Doyle, it's Slowick, it's Kapka. Those types, Zach Robinson, Arthur Smith. Did I mention Slowick?
Yeah,
I think they could have had every one of those guys if they wanted them.
Slowick went where? Miami?
Every single one of them. Yeah, well, he was in Miami, but he's staying with Miami. Obviously, different coach, but
yeah, what was he there before?
Senior passing game coordinator. Senior passing game coordinator. And he's sticking in Miami, but Mike McDaniel is gone and Jeff Hapley's there. So, but every single one of those guys, I think if the Eagles wanted them, I think they could have got them.
All right. Well, that's fair. That makes you feel a little better. Here's Leon. J-Mac, are you and Reuben Clark cool with each other? I meant Reuben Frank. All right. Is he the knucklehead?
Yeah, I don't care, but we'll never be friends, I don't think. But I apologize to Vic for my estimate in that because it was at Vic's press conference, but no, he knows he was wrong. So, I mean, I wasn't wrong. I just should have done it more professionally. But no, kind of a bully. So I don't know. It's probably not going to be a friendship there.
That's fine. I don't think you need it. Team J-Mac on that. That's all I'll say. Good stuff there. All right. Appreciate everybody being here. John, we just talked about the O-line a little bit. Let's shift gears. Mekhi Becton, rumored to potentially be released, which I think, that's just the nature of this NFL league, man. You leave and go get a contract. It's not a guarantee you're going to live through that contract. If he's released, John, do you think that should be an area of interest for the Eagles? Because you just talked about it. You got to fix the running game. All right, well, how do you fix the running game when everybody's already under contract? Outside of just hoping people play better, there's not many things you can do. So we're working from, in my opinion, a limited list here of things to do to improve it. Is Mekhi Becton a good option, John? Should Mekhi Becton return?
No, I would not go down that route. Sometimes, sometimes lightning strikes, and in this case, it struck in a good way. And I think you should just let it lie and say, hey, don't go back and expect it to strike again. A lot of injury issues. Played really poorly this year. His history before he got to Philadelphia was not great.
Yeah.
I think the way to go with the offensive line is to draft younger guys, and I think they will potentially in the first round. I would not even entertain.
How do they get on the field? Like your center's making 18, your left guard's making 21, your left tackle's making 25, your right tackle you're not putting. I mean, there's obviously Lane Johnson.
Well, the option is, at worst case scenario, you upgrade. If you get the guy you want, which has been what they've been looking for, is a guy who can start inside and kick out outside to eventually replace Lane. If that player is in this draft, it might be Caden Proctor, it might be somebody else. You start him out at right guard, worst case scenario, or left guard, because I think Tyler is solid, if unspectacular. And then you kick him outside when you need him outside to replace Lane. So, or if Landon's completely broken down and not healthy, you place Tyler at right guard, you play him at left guard. Or you play Tyler at left guard if he's more comfortable at right guard. Either way, because Tyler can play both. So I think would be the plan if you take one with the 23rd pick and you have that player. You just have options. You have options. But I would not go like Mekhi Becton played really poorly this season.
Yeah,
really poorly.
Yeah. Regression to the mean there. He hasn't been before the Philly. He wasn't great either.
Yeah, and I'm sure he'd have a better year here, but I would not go down that route at all.
So just to be clear, there is an element of you need the offensive line to play better. Now, whether that's health, wherever you would put that's fine. That's up to you or up to Jeff Stoutland, I guess. But that's just it, right? They just need to play better next year. I mean, or else they're not going to be better. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, very fair to say. Yeah, I mean that this team has to run the football effectively. Doesn't have to be 2,000 yard effectively, but it's got to be effective. It's got to be at your baseline has to be Miles or DeAndre. That's your baseline. That last year they didn't hit that baseline. They didn't. The effectiveness of the running game was not nearly what it was in the Miles Sanders era or the DeAndre Swift era. Never mind the 2000 Saquon year. They need to get at the minimum back to where they were in 21, 22, 23. You're probably never getting back to 2024, but you need to get back at least to those first 3 years.
Yeah, I agree. I have a little bit less confidence that they do that than you. I know we talked about that the other day where you think, I don't want to speak for you, but you do think that Cam's going to be better next year. You think he's going to be more healthy.
Yeah, I do. I don't know about Landon because I was very shaken by Landon's
his comments
description after the loss. Now maybe he's just disappointed after the loss. Maybe he's going to be fine. But I mean, remember, Landon's issues date all the way back to college, Florida State. Forget about Alabama.
He came out with double knees. I mean, he's got braces on. Yeah, I remember.
So I mean, he's got a significant injury history, and it's all over. It's knees, it's ankles, it's everything. Whereas Cam, I think, in back surgery, we talked a lot. All back surgeries are different, but from everything he's told me, he's going to be fine. It's just you need some time to get back to full strength, and I think he will with a complete off season. So I'm more concerned with Landon from a health perspective than Landon, and
then Cam.
with Lane Johnson, I don't know what's going on with Lane, so that's obviously up in the air.
Yeah, we'll see. I think it's going to an interesting setup there where you need these guys to get healthier to come back. Landon, is I agree with you. Landon's a problem. I have a little bit more concern on Cam than you. I mean, I know we talked about this, but you understand where that comes from, right? I mean, a back surgery. You got a center doing this every play, John, taking on 300-pound defensive tackle.
Offensive lineman, it doesn't sound good, any back surgery, but
right.
I mean, all I can do is listen to the player, and he says he's getting better, and it will get better. And maybe he's wrong, but it's hard. And again, there's all kinds of back surgery. There's more serious kinds. There's herniated disc, which are really serious. Tim Jernigan's a guy here who hurt his back lifting weights, not even on the field, and never got back to what he was. So, I mean, there's the potential, but I think he got to a point where you at least saw the positivity of him being able to play at an acceptable level at times. I think that's positive, and he says he expects to be better with more time off the surgery. So you got to wait and see. But any injury, I mean, well, Chris Maragos is the best example here, where they didn't even screw up the surgery; they screwed up the rehab, and they had to pay millions of dollars for it, and ended his NFL career. I always bring up Sharif Floyd, Philly native, who they nicked the nerve in his knee surgery, and he was a very good player, turning into a real difference maker, and they screwed up the surgery, and he was never the same. So it happens, but it's rare. And as medical practices get better and better, most guys get back, and I think Cam will get back to what he once was from a health standpoint.
We'll see what ends up happening with it, Johnny Mac. Going to be interesting to see with the offensive line. I thought Mekhi Becton was interesting, but I do happen to agree with you. I don't know if you want to go back on that road. I do think it's a little bit bleak on the offensive line because it's kind of hope. I mean, I know you think they're going to get better, which makes sense. I mean, the medical stuff is much better today, but it is hope, right? I mean, you're hoping that they're more healthy.
You could argue everything in the NFL is hope. I mean, yeah, Landon has a great quote. That's what doctors are for, to fix things. I mean, so you are trusting the doctors, and I'm giving examples where it didn't work. And it does. There are examples where it doesn't work, but the percentages are pretty good, where guys aren't screwing up surgeries. And if they are, you don't hear about them anymore because players won't go to them. But there's certain, like N'Kobe's a perfect example. That injury used to be a death sentence in the NFL 15 years ago.
Yeah.
He looked like he didn't miss a beat after he rehabbed.
Yeah, arguably looked better in some areas.
So, I mean, and arthroscopic surgery versus cutting people open, there's been a lot of advances in the medical field over the years. And that's why, again, 30 years ago, if Landon Dickerson had his same injury history, he'd be retired. But now doctors are fixing things, and he's able to get back on the field. So yeah, I mean, if you want to phrase it as I'll phrase it as you got to trust the surgeons, but as Landon says, they're there to fix things. And they usually do.
Good stuff. I appreciate everybody being here. We will see what happens with this O-line. Real quick, John, one more question on Cam Jurgens. How much do you think his decline in play was because of injury? Do you think it was all injury? Do you think there's a level of maybe Cam's, was overstated before the year? Do you think it was all injury? Because, there's some tape of him, John, and I'm sure you've seen some of it. It's not great. I don't know. Maybe it is all injury. Do you see it like that, or how do you see it?
It's funny. I don't think he's as bad as people made him out to be. He was basically I'm trying to pull up his PFF grades. He was 14th out of 40 in 2024. Now, part of that was late in the season when he was playing with the injury, which deterred him. So this year he was 18th of 37. So he's right in the same range. He actually had a better grade this year than last year. But again, that's construed by he played really poorly at the end of the season because he was playing through the injury. So at his height, he was playing much better in 2024. I do think there were some, like the whips, which is what everybody's talking about. Again, one play, one often too much one play scouting. Those are some technique issues that need to be fixed. Now the question is he making those technique problems because of the injury? Maybe. I don't think it was all because of the injury. I do think there were some fundamental breakdowns as well. And maybe they were because he didn't feel as confident in the back, but it's hard to gauge other than he's got to be better next year. Whatever it is, he's got to be better. But he was really, I think, his low lights were really low. And he was there, they were obvious. And when you whiff, people are going to make a big deal out of it, but that's the life of an offensive lineman, especially as a tackle. Like if you're Lane Johnson and you're dropping back in pass coverage 35 times and you give up one sack, all people talk about is you gave up a sack and you drop back 35 times. It's the life of an offensive lineman. So if you whiff as an interior guy, it's noticeable. And I don't think it was just because of the injury. But he didn't play as badly as people thought he'd. I think the offensive line didn't play as badly as people thought. They're just used to such a high level here.
Well, it was the run blocking, right? It wasn't the pass blocking. It was the run blocking. And that's where, we talk about that.
I think it was. I think it was. Yeah, I think they were above average this year instead of great, where they were historic.
But you do agree that the run blocking was slightly worse than the pass blocking, and that was what they struggled to get going.
Yeah, but that's to the point of everybody's got their fingerprints on it. I think, but nobody wants to bring up the running back, man. He did not have a good year either.
No, he didn't. He did get hit behind the line of scrimmage a lot, though, dude.
And I think if you look at all the people we're talking about, so Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen. I won't even put Lane in there because he missed the last 8 games, and obviously he played at a high level before that. And then just as an individual, who was the worst player of that group? I think you can make a strong argument it was the running back. A very strong argument.
Wow.
You can make a strong argument that it was Cam. A couple guys. Obviously Jordan was better. Obviously Landon was better, even at his level. And I'm talking about just as an individual player. I want to, man, I'm still looking. All right. There were
Is
there were
that just
59.
like where?
There were
I don't know. I know Saquon
there
wasn't
were
great. Holy
there were
moly!
50 there were 59 running backs who played enough to be ranked this year by PFF. He was number 42. There's only 32 teams. That means there's 32 starting running backs.
Yeah. And where was Cam
I
Jordan?
mean,
He must have been pretty low.
No, he was middle of the pack. There's not as many players, of course, because centers play all the time. 37 guys ranked who played enough. He was 18th, so middle of the road. 18 of 37. Landon Dickerson let's look up Landon. Landon was more guards because there's two.
How much are
guards
Saquon's numbers slanted because of blocking?
Part of it, again, yes, he did get hit behind the line of scrimmage, but by his own
because of his blocking, because he's not a good blocker. He's not.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, that's and the receiving part of it. So I'll take that out of it because you're right. That's going to affect his grade, and he's really had a poor season, pass blocking and catching the football. So we'll take just as a runner, which I'm sure it'll be much better. I'm looking for him. Right.
You're right, though. He's pretty freaking low, man.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have a good year.
No, he did not.
But you're right. His run grade was 25 of 53, so middle of the pack, which again is not what you expect. But certainly his receiving grade, which was dismal, and his blocking grade, pulled him down. But that's part of it. I mean, when you're talking about it as a player, that's part of it. But for this practice, we're just talking about the running game. He was below average. It's basically what it was. So you're going from historic to below average. I think with the offensive line, you went from historic to above average, which is not good either when you're starting at that level.
See, this is an interesting stat here, John, and it's not really a stat, but Brandon Howard checks in. Our O-line had the highest rate of contact behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I know.
Year. We were best at yards.
Saquon himself said he's got to do it. And again, that's from historic to a number of things, to being not nearly as good on the offensive line. And again, people just wanted it's almost like a mini Jalen Hurts. You have this group of people. It's like the guy himself, forget about it. He talked about it all year. Dirty runs. Look it up. Google it. He's got to do a better job. He's got to do a better job. If it's blocked for 2 yards, get 2 yards, get 3 yards. If you're really superstar, get 3 or 4. If it's blocked for 1, get 1. If it's blocked to lose 2, lose 2, but don't lose 5 when you're trying to break out of it. His own description all year was, I got to do a better job with that. Nobody's saying the offensive line played up to the level they did in 2024. All I'm saying is the offensive line was better than Saquon Barkley last season.
Do you think the passing game being below average the last 2 years has impacted that?
Well, it didn't impact at all in 2024, but it certainly impacted it this year because when there's no doubt teams came in and said, we're going to stop this running game. We're going to stop Saquon Barkley. So that's part of it. Yeah. People adjusted and they made it very clear that they were going to sell out to stop the run, and that's part of it. Certainly. And yeah, I mean, they did a good job, and the Eagles weren't able to toggle. I think a lot of people said, well, if you stop, they'll just toggle and throw the ball all over, but they couldn't do that. So it becomes a glaring weakness if you can't run the football in Philadelphia. And there were times this year where they could not run the football.
No doubt. How about the number one running back graded out this year was Kenneth Walker. Number 3 was Zach Charbonnet. That's Seattle tandem. Now, Charbonnet's out now, but that's Seattle tandem. DeAndre Swift's way up there too, everybody. He's number 6, so he had a good year behind that Bears O-line, who had a great year, the Bears O-line. But, all right, there you go. Good questions there on the offensive line. It's interesting to see what they do there to try and fix that. How much do you think that's a factor in this coordinator search, John? I mean, just like if you think about it. Concern at O-line, questions at O-line, like how good are they going to be, or are they going to be healthy? Is their best days behind them? Same with Saquon Barkley. Don't know if AJ Brown's going to be back. Don't know if Dallas Goedert's going to be back. I mean, if you're an OC coming in, you're like, wait a second, that's not as. I might not be getting what I think I'm getting, Yeah,
I don't think that changes from any job. I mean, the Eagles, it's not like as I said, there's 33% or so turnover average every year. So anywhere you're going, you're getting turnover. Now, and again, I think most guys recognize that the perception of the talent is probably not where it once was. In other words, everybody thinks, we've been talking about this for months on this show, everybody thinks they have the most talent of, not everybody, but a significant large portion of the media and the fan base think they have the most talent in the NFL on offense. Part because they're the highest paid, yada, yada, yada. All the reasons. Demonstrated performance. At one point, they did. Life moves quickly. Football moves quickly. Every coordinator knows that. There's not a situation, again, I brought it up with Mike McDaniel. Trust me, he's not happy with everything on the Chargers offense. You're going to have issues no matter where you choose. So I don't think guys are looking at, well, this can't work because they're losing Dallas Goedert, or they're, the offensive line isn't as good. Most of these guys lived in a world where their offensive lines were shitty, and they'd be thrilled to have an above average offensive line. So I don't think that personnel factors into it all that much outside of, team. Yeah, guys do want to work with quarterbacks that they think can do a bunch of different things, but that's pie in the sky. You're talking about 4 or 5 guys where you're saying, all right, that guy's elite, top tier. And that's, most of those jobs aren't open for obvious reasons.
Fair enough. All right, here we go. Let's get to some more super chats, then we'll wrap it up. We got about 20 minutes left in the show today. Here's Chris. What's up, Chris? Johnny Mac, teams are playing 8-man fronts. What's going to change next season? We have to get our passing game right and a better run scheme. I think the passing game is a big part of that.
Yeah, well, again, we're going to go back and forth. There's a core group that thinks Jalen Hurts can be a high volume passer. I don't know what more you need to see. So I'm more focused on fixing the running game and taking advantage and taking your spots in the passing game. I think that's the best way to go about it. Or if you want to force evolution and you want to shove the square peg in the round hole, so to speak, and force him to do all these things you want to see him do, I think you're going to see some significant growing pains at the bare minimum, even if you are correct. So, I think you're going to see some significant growing pains before you get to that point where it's acceptable. And I don't know if that path exists in Philadelphia, because there's going to be some significant angst in between those 2 points, where you're going to have people getting fired and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, fair enough. Here's Pump. What's up, Pumper? A little more context. Dable said AJ was open all the time and then freaking giggled. Dable is not a big Hurts fan. Can we stop the semantics?
I don't know. Pumper, have you ever met either? Like, you could also Google nice things he said about Jalen Hurts. Like, why are you taking one thing and blowing it up to the point of, oh, this is the reason? Like, why, when he spoke nicely of him, why isn't that the reason that he likes Jalen Hurts?
That's fair. Do those instances exist? I'm sure they do.
Yes, they do. Anybody can Google.
Yeah.
Here's some really nice things about them.
Here's Pump again. 7 OCs in 7 years. If Jalen Hurts is such a solid QB, why does coaching affect him that much? Why does he need everything for him to succeed? Well, I mean, I think any time that turnover is a lot of turnover.
I mean, that's like, why aren't you seeing the 17-0 every year? I mean, it's hard to win. People adjust, go back. I'm not one who said coaching has affected him. I thought, he played well early this season, and then struggled later. At one point, when we were talking about all the all the regressions on the offensive side of the football, I only had 2 players actually who had gotten a little bit better, and one of them was Jalen Hurts, and the other was Devontae Smith. Now, that was probably like week 10 or something. And then he sort of went downhill again, which was disappointing. But I think it's been I think it's been shockingly similar from 21 through 2025, his play, no matter who the coordinator or the play caller has been. And then, the success versus the playoff losses have been generally traced to other stuff, having the historic ground game, etc., having the better offensive line. But again, there's never been a quarterback that, and this includes Drake May and Sam Darnold, there's never been a quarterback who's gone to the Super Bowl, never mind the Super Bowl, that doesn't have a good supporting cast.
It's gonna be. I'm excited for the Super Bowl. It should be a pretty good one. The Seahawks and the Patriots should be a pretty good game. Looking forward to that. All right, Pump, brother. Appreciate everybody for being here today. John, do you think we'll get some sort of solution? I know I'm going to keep asking you this every single day until we get there. Do you expect a solution today or breaking news? Do you expect to talk to me today? Do you expect to get annoyed by me today later on, or do you expect it to be a different day?
Well, I don't think it's going to be today, simply because, and again, the lack of transparency, it's hard to gauge. But from my perspective, they seem to be waiting for something. For something to happen. And until that domino falls, I don't think they're going to make a decision. Once that domino falls, I think they're going to make that decision very quickly. So I did predict by the end of this week, I think it's Buffalo, but I don't know it's Buffalo. And I think once you get clarity there, I think it's going to happen pretty quickly. And I just have a hunch it's going to be Matt Nagy. I got to figure out, is it Nagy or Nagy? I got to figure it out.
I think it's Nagy. I don't know what it is. You're going to have to figure. I'll let you figure that one out. That's going to be interesting to see. All right, John, what do you think about a little around the league? What do you think of the Bills interviewing Phillip Rivers to be the coach?
Yeah, I like when people do. I like that when Josh McCown left the field and he got interviews right away and people were up in arms. And I never understood that because I always, and by the way, Philip Rivers is a perfect example of what I was talking about. He withdrew from the Bills coaching search for those who did not see it. That's how it was described. No, he wasn't getting the job. So his agent says, he withdrew from the coaching search. It's not, again, going back to where we started the show, it's not Eagle centric. It's been going on for years. That's the way they do it. When you know you're not getting a job, you withdraw. You withdraw. But I like the fact that they wanted to talk to him. I brought the same thing up with Josh McCown. He's got no experience. He's got no experience. Well, in the case of Josh, he played 18 years. Philip Rivers played similar amount of years. Isn't that experience? Running and off, isn't that experience?
Yeah, right.
I would argue it's more. I'd rather have that experience, and that's why I advocated. At the time, I thought the Eagles should give Josh McCown the offensive. I wrote that. I remember distinctly writing that. I said, just give it to Josh right now, because he was debating whether to play another year as a backup or go into coaching. And I'm like, he's not going to go into coaching to be.
Is it after that Seattle playoff game?
I forget the year. I forget the timing. I have to look it up.
I remember by Clowney and McCown.
Yeah, well, yeah, the playoff game. Yeah, I remember the playoff game. The offensive coordinator stuff. No, because he came back he was the first COVID quarter. He wasn't even at the building. They just signed him.
Oh yeah, that's right.
COVID quarter. So it was. So my point is when I wrote the article was, he's not going to start as a quality control coach. You got to start a quality control. No, if you want to be bold, hire the guy. He would have taken the offensive coordinator's job. But predictably they didn't go that way. He's still not a coordinator. He's a quarterback's coach, but he's not a coordinator. I still think he's going to be a future head coach. Same thing with Philip Rivers. If he wants to do it, the guy knows more about offensive football than anybody else. Generally, to play that position, you're a natural leader. Now there's more into it. It's a bigger job. I always explain logistics. You got to set up schedules.
You always call it a nomadic profession. Not easy when you got like 11 kids.
Well, that too. Yeah, that could be a problem. But I like that they interviewed him. I think it's a good idea. And the same with Josh back in the day. But boy, it's tough to do. Again, this is such a public-facing industry. Like, you got to be really bold to say, I don't care what you're going to say, because if you hired Josh McCown back then, or they hired Philip Rivers now, they'd be getting boatloads of shit. Well, these guys have been doing it, and there's very few people that can withstand that type of criticism. But I like picking his brain and all that stuff.
Good stuff there. Appreciate everybody being here today. Appreciate all the super chats as well. Hit that like button for us. Should be a good one. We will find out how the rest of the cookie crumbles. John, how many teams still need an OC? It feels like there's still a lot of them out there. So the Eagles aren't in uncharted territory yet.
Yeah. Well, I know at one point it was 15, 16. So there's 6 head coaches that have hired. I haven't been paying attention who picked their offensive
Robert
coordinator.
Saleh doesn't want to wait for Dable,
Well, that's a possibility, but he seems to be waiting. So I don't know. That's why it's so uncertain. I know Hapley hired Bobby Slowick. So, they want to make decisions quickly as well. But that's what makes the Dable thing so interesting, because Tennessee has kept interviewing offensive coordinator candidates. Now, again, part of that could be contingency, because if he does get the Buffalo job, you got to be prepared. But a couple pretty high guys who are talking to the agent said, I wouldn't close the door on Philly completely. So take it for what it is.
We'll see. We will see what ends up happening with that. Going to be interesting. That Shieldhouse name, John, has been really floating around a lot. A bunch of interviews for him yesterday. So we'll see if he ends up with a.
I think he talked himself out of the Cleveland job. I thought he was getting the Cleveland job.
Shit job. Yeah.
I think Jim's going to get that job.
Yeah, Jim Schwartz, me too.
Yeah. But I think it seemed, and I don't know, obviously I'm not there. If you want to know, follow Mary Kay Cabot. She knows what's going on with the Cleveland Browns. But I get the feeling that they were pushing to get a deal done yesterday, Shieldhouse camp, and I think they pushed a little bit too hard, and the Browns are like, who the fuck is this guy? That's what I get the feel of that situation. But we'll see. They still have Jim Schwartz. They have Todd Monken. He's still in it.
Yeah. Did the Giants hire an OC yet? No, right? Are they waiting for Monken?
No, they're waiting. They're waiting for Monken. Yeah, they're waiting for Monken. The perception is he's going there, but
yeah,
he's still technically in the mix in Cleveland. So, but yeah, I mean, there's another guy that people connected to the Eagles, but it never came to fruition, at least that we know of. And he'd make a lot of sense just from a schematic standpoint, I think. But I'm much more confident saying he's going to go with John Harbaugh than I am that Daboll's going to go with Robert Saleh. I mean, they have a long history with John Harbaugh.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. All right, John, good stuff, man. Appreciate everybody for being here today. It's an interesting time of the year for this Eagles team. After the OC search, John, where do we turn our sights? What is next? Start the draft prep, right? I mean, that's how many days until the NFL draft? NFL draft countdown is what? Draftcountdown.com. 86 days, J-Mac, until the NFL draft, brother. 86 days.
Well, the Senior Bowl is later this week, so I mean that'll ramp up. Yeah, the draft ramps up, and then free agency starts. March, maybe 11th. I don't have the dates in front of me, but somewhere. So shit moves quickly.
Yeah, March 11th.
So yeah, I mean, draft and free agency. We will gear towards talking about the personnel when they finally get this offensive coordinator. And there's plenty to talk about with the personnel because they have to make some significant decisions. We still don't know what Lane's going to do. We still don't know. I'm sure they'll try to talk AJ and with the new offensive coordinator, whoever that is. They'll try to talk him back for one more year, but that's a negotiation that has to happen. Talked about the offensive line. We talked about the running back. Defense, bigger, they have some coaching stuff they have to deal with. Obviously, that elevated Joe Casper. There's a possibility Clint Hurt leaves. There's still a possibility that they lose more of the support staff. Rennell Williams is interviewed, I saw in Dallas. So people are looking at I think lost in the sauce as people are looking at the Eagles' defensive coaching staff. And I'm surprised it took that long. It was late. That's probably helped last year because they won the Super Bowl. So if Clint Hurt gets a job, that might be an issue because they don't have an obvious heir apparent. They had an heir apparent for Christian. They don't have an heir apparent for Clint Hurt.
And who do you think will fill Casper's shoes? Will they hire somebody from out of house, or elevation?
Well, they're going to hire somebody because the way they set it up is they had defensive passing game coordinators slash secondary coach, which was Christian. He got that job. He got both of those jobs. So he's now the defensive passing game coordinator and the secondary coach. And then they had a safeties coach and a cornerbacks coach. They still have Roy Anderson, who's the cornerbacks coach. They'll need, if they want to keep the same setup, they'll need to bring in a safeties coach. And I'm sure Big has some names in mind. But again, when we talk about turnover, it's just part of the NFL. But generally the Xerox copy is not as sharp as the original, at least right away, at least until you fix the machine. And you fix the machine with experience. And the only way you get experience is to do something. So there's going to be some growing pains. And Jeffrey Lurie, if you're out there, start showing more patience, buddy. And then you wouldn't be in these monster offensive coordinator searches.
Well, Jeffrey Lurie cares about perception. Here's a tweet I just got sent. Forget no one wanting the Browns job. That's obvious. Watching men turn down the OC job for the Philadelphia Eagles over and over is the real story. Despite all the talent, no one wants to work with Nick Sirianni in Philly.
Who said this?
This is a tweet somebody just sent me from Chuck Knox. I don't know who Chuck Knox is, but he's I'm just saying for perception purposes.
Yeah, well, the perception, yeah. And that I think you could blame.
And Lurie does care about that, though. It's not. I'm with you.
That's self-fulfilling. But yeah. Well, I
just wonder what he thinks of its OC search.
Like I'm
bothered by it.
Like, is that a media person? Is that I'm not. I don't know.
I don't know. I didn't look at. Somebody just sent it to me on Twitter. I just saw it literally a second ago.
I mean, if it's a fan, I don't think it matters that much. But the media people, it can hit home. And there's a lot of media people who aren't, national guys who aren't close to the Eagles who have that perception. So, and it keeps getting trumpeted. So, I mean, and I'm sure the Eagles don't like it, but hey, man, look in the mirror. You're creating that perception.
Yeah. Here's Brian Fleming, excuse me, not Pump. I'm late, but Ruben Frank's a cuck. J-Mac forever. LOL. That's funny. Here's Pumper.
First of all,
that name.
But yeah, I mean, first, it's not a big deal. He's fine. There's nothing wrong. I just said, are we going to be friends? We weren't friends before. We won't be friends after. That's it.
That's all right. They're going to vouch for you. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. It's not, I don't like being the center of attention because that's not my job, but whatever.
Yeah, but stuff happens, and the people here are more in the know with it than most, so that's we're gonna have a comment on it. Here's Pump. Announce Shedeur Sanders as the next OC. How about him getting the Pro Bowl? That's pretty cool.
Oh, how ridiculous is that? Like literally the worst quarterback in the NFL. Why is he in the Pro Bowl?
Got to change that because the Pro Bowl does matter to players for very obvious reasons. It helps them get contracts. It helps them, get accolades, Hall of Fame.
Well, they
do legitimize it with shit like this. So it's like, all right, you either got to change how much it means, or you got to stop at the bullshit parameters for how people get it.
They have to stop using that as a measuring stick for contracts.
Or change the parameters to make it legit.
Yeah, which they should, I've often advocated with the Pro Bowl because the original Pro Bowl list is pretty good. There's some mistakes, but it's okay. But the replacements should not be able to call themselves Pro Bowl selections. I mean, they can go play in the game. Who cares? But to your point, you're taking the value away from guys who actually, had good years and earned it. I've never seen the level of that though as a replacement. The closest would have been when Snoop Huntley had a pretty good year as a backup, and he was like the fifth alternate when they were still playing the game. That's the worst I've ever seen it get to. when he was named a Pro Bowl selection, which was 2022. I think they were still playing the game, but he didn't even play that much. He started 4 games and he played pretty well, but it was ridiculous. Like Shador, I realize he's got a lot of fans. I mean, objectively, he was up against it. I mean,
he wasn't very good.
But he was terrible. It's like you might as well put JJ McCarthy on the other side. It's like, what are we doing here? Yeah, so I'm with you. I mean, they have to stop that. If they're going to use it as a measuring stick for players and contracts and things like that. If not, if you fix that part of it, who cares? I mean, it's just entertainment. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at, since we're doing grades, 38 quarterbacks ranked. He was 38th. 38 of 38.
And he's the
38 of 38.
Come on, man. I was a Shador fan coming out, man. Come on. All right, John, your final thoughts here on the show today.
Yeah, I mean, the search is a search. Panda Watch is on.
It's led to me and you arguing about Brian freaking Daboll. That's what it's led to, the search.
Well, yeah, I don't even like Brian Daboll, but if they get him, I think it clarifies a lot of things. Is well, all I was trying to say. I probably didn't say it as succinctly as that. Definitely didn't. If they get him, I think it clarifies a lot of things. If they don't get him, then a lot of things have to be clarified. Like what the hell was going on with this search?
Yeah.
But I mean, guys like Jared Johnson, Frank Smith, Josh Grizzard, if they end up Jim Bob Cooter, they could have those guys if they want those guys, and they haven't chosen them. So
yeah, well, those guys for sure. I mean,
some stuff has to be explained.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, John, good show, brother. I will talk to you maybe later on today. Probably not, but we will see. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Probably not.
Probably.
All right. See you guys. Thanks.
There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen joining us right here on Birds 365. Good show today. Appreciate everybody being here. Don't forget to hit that like button on the show today. Plenty of stuff to talk about with this football team. I am not as optimistic about the whole thing as John is. You know, we debated about it a couple times today and this week already so far. It's only Tuesday, folks. I feel like me and John are like oil and water already this week, which is pretty funny. No problem with that. Appreciate everybody being here. Hire Kevin Patullo. Yeah, right. He might come back. Rasputin says, didn't he say AJ's always open, but Jalen? Yeah, Rasputin, I brought this up on the show. Me and John got in a massive debate about it, a massive argument about what Brian Daboll meant by that comment. I took it the same way as you, brother. But people don't like to hear that, though. Trey, what's up, brother? Appreciate you being here. All right, here's Impulsive. Sanders was ranked 37th and 37 in 5 major statistical categories. The Pro Bowl's a joke. It really is. It really is. It really is. The spin is written already. Oh, we already know it. All right. Breaking news, Eagles hiring Twiz as GOAT. I haven't seen Twiz. He might be feeding the goats on the farm. All right. He might be feeding the goats on the farm. Massive debater. John loves the debate. There's no doubt about it. Sometimes I think John just says I'm wrong just because he wants to debate me. Lang probably told John to pretend the OC search is normal. It's possible. Lang might have put that memo out. The only part of that I disagree with is he put it out to everybody, not just John. Daboll ain't running to Jalen and the Eagles, that's for sure. Familiar? The offense ain't going to look that much different no matter who you hire. I kind of agree, intern Sirianni, but we'll find out. All right, we will find out. So there's Twiz. What up, Twizzler? Oh, man. I'm getting out of here today. I got some shit to do. I'm working on some good stuff. Bob says, Zander, Lurie and Howie should make Nick run his offense. Make the guy earn his paycheck. I think he is running his offense. Johnny Mack is Lurie's cooler. Here's Fleming. Hurts is the center of all of it. He's a single read outside the numbers only, never the middle quarterback. That's why his offense is inside zone and hitch routes. Brian, don't say that too loud. You get people come at you. T-Time, what's up, brother? We are going with a young OC and running the offense back, guys. I agree, T-Time. We'll find out. All right, we'll find out how it all plays out. We will find out how it all plays out. Gonna be an interesting one. To see. By the way, is everybody all right from shoveling yesterday? Anybody who's in the area? Holy shit. It was like not it wasn't really snow we were shoveling. It was whack it with the whack it, break the ice, So here we go. Why not bring Roman in, run Jalen into the ground, and start over in 27? Greg Roman, I don't dislike. Greg Roman, well, come on, man. What is going on with this fucking computer? This is why I got a new computer, folks. I'm not using this piece of shit anymore because it's a flat-out piece of shit. Oh, my gosh. I got the new one over here. It's banging. It is absolutely banging compared to this one. When you work on these things all damn day, then you need to have a good one. All right? You need to have a good one. You've been hacked. No, not me, man. I got, don't worry. I got some pretty legit protection, Theo. Nobody's hacked me. I'm impossible to be hacked. Or at least as hard as you can possibly get. I guess in the internet world, it's never impossible. But all right, guys, appreciate all you guys being here. I don't have any time on Zander Time today. We will do more Zander Time coming up here soon in a little bit. I got to get some stuff worked out. All right, so I appreciate all you guys being here. Don't forget to hit the like button. Slagger, no, I don't want to make that bet, Slagger. Don't jinx me, though. I can't get hacked, all right? All right, dude, that can't happen. So appreciate all you guys for watching. Hit the like button. See you next time, everybody.
EAGLES, Eagles.